I came
I
in.
haven't watched it.
Oh, yeah.
You say premium, isn't it?
Say that again?
It's 9:30. It's 7:31. Done to Boston. Did you finish your history or what?
I'm not too sure if this person is speaking to us or the mic is open. All right. What was I saying now? So I said, Paul, if of all the New Testament writers, probably of all the writers in the Bible, Paul is the most prolific about marriages. He has written probably the most, and I stand corrected, those of you who are theologians like Ike. He's definitely the most prolific writer in the New Testament, and he has the most things to say about marriage and relationship and husbands and wives. So Jeremiah was an object lesson. Paul, God told Jeremiah, look, you're not going to get married, you're not going to have children, you're not going to do any of these. And the reason why, you are going to demonstrate for Israel how they've been acting. So he was an object lesson. But the vast majority of us, if we want to get married, we can get married. Now, many of you would say, well, Hilton, what about there are no good men left? I'm over a certain age. I don't have enough money. I am widowed. I'm divorced. I am this size or that size. All of those. If we were to look at the evidence, I kid you not, go down to town, wherever you are, stand by the wayside, the side of the road, and observe people going back and forth. And you will notice that you will find couples of every size, of every hue, of every description. There are people who don't have arms that get married. There's a guy in Kenya who was crowned the ugliest man in all of the world of Kenya. He has his teeth hanging out on his lips. He got married twice. There are ladies who, and I read one of them the other day, who don't have arms. I wanted to show you these pictures. So regardless of what state you're in, somebody who is similar to you has gotten married. And so I tell this story, and I want to tell you this story before I get into the depth of what I'm going to share. Of this young lady, if you've heard it before, it's a good thing to listen to it again because I'll expand and pluck some ideas out of it. She was a 21-year-old who was in the first flush of her womanhood, usually around that age. The world is your oyster. You have people knocking at your door. She was in and out of relationship, but she really always wanted to get married. She had a bad relationship, then she was going out with this guy, and the guy was just faffing about, she really loved him and wanted, but the guy wasn't really serious. Anyway, she went to the doctor for some reasons, and she had a blood test, and the doctor office called her back and said, okay, she needs to come in and have a talk with the doctor. As 21, 22-year-old, you're not thinking anything serious. Many of those people think that they're immune and that they would live forever. Then they don't think about death, they don't think about disease, because usually your body is virile, is resilient, it has it all going totally well for young adults. And she got the news that no 21, 22-year-old would ever want to hear. She got the news that she had cancer. And not only did she have cancer, she had stage 4 cancer. Well, you would think that was bad. She called this boyfriend And, she was absolutely devastated, wanting some support, told the guy what happened or the news she got, and the guy couldn't handle it. The guy couldn't handle it. The guy broke up with her on the phone. You would think that things couldn't have gotten worse from what she heard. So she was absolutely, devastated. The funny thing is, she had to deal with all of this all on her own. Her mom supported her, her best friend supported her. And, a couple of months on, while she was, grappling with this and going through the different treatment that they give people, she confided in her best friend, that she would still like to get married. But who would ever even think of taking on somebody who's terminally ill? And they were there speaking back and forth, and many of the things that I normally tell people to do when I'm coaching them, she had started to do them. And the girl, her friend said, you know what? I mean, this is sad to say, but if you're dying anyway, you might as well give it a try. This is funny. I shouldn't really be laughing. So they sat and they did some of the things that some people would tell them to do. And, they wrote what, I personally would tell people not to write a checklist, but to think of the type of family that you want. And then, you work backwards from that. But we'll get to that. So they didn't think any more of it. And in fact, she did, what they call a vision board also. Her friend, her best friend, worked in a man's store, a store that sells clothing primarily geared to men and for men. And one day she was at work and two guys came in, very well-dressed guys. And while she was attending to them, something in her spirit said, oh, this guy would suit her. It was just something that just happened. Sometimes you just get they call it a revelation or intuition or whatever it is. And she just opened the mouth and said to the guy, hold on, she asked the guy to hear his name and what he did. And, she was very nice. Of course, she was, attending to them, serving them. And she said to the guy, my friend and I are having an activity over the weekend, and it's going to be fun. I think you guys are invited. You should come. It's going to be fun. And surprisingly, the guy said yes. Now, interestingly, nothing was ever planned. She made it up on the spot. She ran home, called her friend, they got together and called several other friends and planned the entire activity on the spot. So, and they were thinking, oh my days, their hands, they were full of anxiety. Will these people actually show up? Will these guys show up? And lo and behold, the guys showed up. And it was like a little party. It went very well, swellingly wonderful. The interesting thing is that the same guy that she saw and thought, started talking to the girl who was, sick. Obviously, this time no sickness was showing. She still looked the full-blown, beautiful, young self. Nothing was showing that she was sick. And, they fell into conversation. They spoke a lot. When the guy was leaving, she said, he said to her, I really enjoy speaking with you. Is it possible that I could get your number? Why not? So, long story short, he took the number, they started speaking, he wanted to meet up with her again. They met up, they had a rapport with each other that she had never experienced. And he too thoroughly enjoyed it, to the point where he asked her to be exclusive with him. Now, what do you do when you know you have cancer? She didn't tell him, and this person is asking you to be exclusive. What do you do? Do you tell him? Do you say no? Well, she summarily broke off contact because she didn't know what to do. She was terrified. But he would not have it. He tracked her down. Well, he had her number, and he knows where she lives because he has picked her up, and he came to the door, and he wouldn't leave. He wouldn't leave. He wasn't going to leave until. So she opened up, and she had to tell him. She had to tell him. And they had a deep conversation. By this time, this girl had grown on him to such an extent that, miracle of miracles, he didn't actually care. Well, he cared, but for him, the impact was so powerful that he wanted to spend the rest of whatever life she has with her. Ta-da! And long story short, they got married, and they had a really good marriage. Sad news is that she did die. She did die. She did die. I guarantee you that none of you, well, I can't guarantee that, but my suspicion that none of you is in that position that girl is in. And here's a $1 million, 64,000 pound question. If other people are getting married, why not you? If other people who are in similar position to you have gotten married, why not you? If other divorced people have gotten married or are getting married, why not you? If other single parents get married, why not you? Now, I have a raft of reasons why many people don't end up married, even if they think they want to get married. And I could go into them if you want me to. But more than anything else, I would like to posit a powerful technique, well, call it technique, call it strategy, a powerful thing that can shift your mindset, shift your paradigm, your perspective. And I don't know how to tell you or where to start, but maybe I'll start this way, because I think that a lot of people are not getting married because of the way they think and their thoughts. And there are lots of myths surrounding it. There are about maybe 10 to 12 of them. And I don't have sufficient time to get into them. But I've found more than anything else, there is perhaps one or couple of things that stand out. I deal with a lot of people who are wanting to get married or single, and I've noticed a couple of things. And one of the things I blame, it's not it's not your fault, it's the enemy. The enemy of souls have crafted and subtly introduced into society a phenomenon that have so intoxicated the whole society that that thing is probably, for me, one of the worst things that could have happened. Well, there are two of them, really. Do you want me to tell you? Are you okay if I tell you? Anybody want me to tell you?
Yes,
Yeah?
yes, Sophie.
Yes.
No, I'll tell you. And many of you would agree, but it has seeped into the church. And in fact, if I told you this, you probably won't believe it, that it is actually of pagan origin. And it's this concept called romantic love. To the point, brothers and sisters, many of us think that, oh, we don't believe in that. We don't, that doesn't, we want this, that, or the other. But I realize, because sometimes I do a little bit of matchmaking, and I realize that a lot of people, even though they claim that they don't think of these things, it runs deep. And I'll give you an example. When people come to me and they tell me they want some support and help, it's no problem with that. And I find someone, the first thing they ask me for is a picture. Can I see a picture? Both men and women ask me that. Can I see a picture? And yes, pictures are fine. But what that says, remember I spoke about, if you were with me the last time, I spoke that from a biblical perspective, their framework for relationship was CBA rather than ABC. Do you want me to just explain them again briefly? Or do you remember?
Yeah, if you could. Thank you.
Yeah. So from a Western perspective, those primarily America and England and the other parts of the Western world, the concept is, in order for me to even think about you in a certain way, there must be something about you that triggers a sense of attraction. It could be your voice, it could be the way you look, it could be, there has to be something that triggers my attention, that you need that kind of, most people think that they need that kind of trigger. And when that is triggered, then they say, oh, wow, they want to know more about the person. They want to, and in knowing more about that person, they want to engage and interact with that person. And as they engage and interact, they bond. And when there is sufficient bonding, then they decide, okay, why not? Let's get married. Let's commit. Now, there's the danger to that. The danger to that, they spend so much time bonding, and then after a year or 2 or 3 years, something happens that ticks one of them off. They decide, oh, you're not the person for me. So I've had cases, or I know of cases, of men who date, go out with, live with women, but are not ready to settle down with that woman. Why? Because This is outside the church, by the way. This is secular, just to give you that caveat. Because there is something, they're looking for something, but they're quite happy to live with them. I've known other cases even within the church that people, and it's quite strange in Christian circles, that people have these long extended courtships and romance, or not romance, courtships and dating, like a year, 2 years, 3 years, 4 years. And sometimes I wonder, hold on, what's going on? What is going on? Now, there are times, though, that it is required. Maybe one person is studying, somebody's, looking after their mom. There was one guy I know, he was a full-time carer for his mom for quite a few years. His mom passed on, I'm sad to say, so he's tired. So there are times when there is a definite rhyme, reason, and rationale. And so, yes, we could accept that. But more often than not, they're waiting for this, waiting for that, waiting for, and let me just say here, this is an interesting point that I want to share. It's parenthetical, it's an aside. I remember speaking to this guy at a church that I spoke at, and he asked me, Hilton, should you get married and, you haven't actually set yourself up in terms of, your business and all that sort of thing. And I said to him, well, it would be good if you're already set up in your business, or if you already have some, your profession and everything's organized. But biblically speaking, the way the Bible posits it is that the two of you form a team and build together. And if you look at it from that perspective, if you can build together, if you can grow together, two are better than one, according to Ecclesiastes. And the Bible says that she should be his helpmeet, helper suitable to build the kingdom. Whatever, if both of you could join forces together, the result of the two would be greater than the individual. Where was I going with that? Oh, yes. Let me get back on track to get back to where I really want to go. Why I want to say that if you really want to get married, you can get married if you want to. Now, the problem with the ABC model, attraction, bonding, and then commitment, while I agree that you should get to know that person and you should know certain fundamental things about that person before tying your life with that person. And while I say that you shouldn't really, as a rule of thumb, you shouldn't make any lifetime decisions with someone in less than 6 months of knowing them. There are exceptions, of course. And while I agree that it would take maybe a year, between a year and two, to fully understand the dynamics of a person, one person on a conference that I was on said to me, it's not Adventist, it was another conference that I had to speak at. And one of the speakers said that at their church, they advise people who are courting or dating that they need to set a date after a year of each other, of knowing each other, because a year is sufficient time to decide whether or not you want this person. And the reason why that is important, the date doesn't necessarily mean that it has to be the next year, but it is something for the people to work towards. Now, when you don't have a date in mind, what happens is that you slide rather than decide. I'll repeat that again. There is a phenomenon called sliding. Now, sliding is it happens imperceptibly. You know, it's almost like putting on weight. You don't feel yourself putting on weight. And you don't recognize that you're put on weight until it gets to a point where your clothes can't fit you anymore, or for some reason or the other, somebody mentioned something to you which you probably didn't appreciate, or you weigh yourself and you recognize, hold on, what happened here? Sliding is that when you begin to associate with someone, over a period of time, you begin to grow on each other. Even when you haven't said anything specific. There are three things with relationship: time, talk, and togetherness. That builds relationship. And if you spend a lot of time with this person, if you talk to this person a lot, if you are together with this person doing a lot of activities, brothers and sisters, your souls will begin to bond. And as your souls bond, even if you haven't said anything about it, you will get closer and closer together. Initially, emotionally, and ultimately, maybe even physically. And even when you don't physically, there is something that I mentioned last time called non-sexual intimacy. You begin to know this person like a husband would know his wife, or a wife would know you know everything about them. Their deepest secrets. You know and only a spouse should really know that. And if there is a breakup, and there usually is, if you know, because there is actually a cycle. And once there is a certain point of the cycle, there are certain stages that happen. And if certain stages, if it comes to that point and nothing is said, it becomes anticlimactic. Okay, well, I think I'm just going to move off so that's the ABC model. So if you don't commit and you break the relationship, you break the person's heart. And it's almost like a mini divorce. In fact, the mind and the heart doesn't understand that you're not married. You feel the grief and the pain, and we use terms in the language that reflects what happens to the mind. My heart is broken. And they tell us that emotional pain registers in the same area of the brain as physical pain. So that's the ABC model. In the Bible, or in many Asian region of the world, they have the CBA model, where if you see someone, you approach the parents and all that sort of thing. And if things check out, you commit. So in the Bible, you have the betrothal process. Don't have enough time to get into the nuts and bolts of it. The betrothal process, which commits you just as much as you know, it's almost like you're already committed. You're already committed. And during that process, during that time, you exchange letters, you bond. And then when you come together, you begin to experience an appreciation for the person, and the person grows on you, and you become attracted romantically to the person. So I hope that helps. So let's go on further to share with you. Let's see what time it is. Should I now share with you maybe one practical and pragmatic way of getting married? And if we have time, I would like to also share with you not just a pragmatic and practical way, but also probably some reasons why people don't get married. So, and yeah, I would like to also share with you, as the thought came to me, some things to look for, which is not what you think, right? Some things to look for. So I will now segue into how to get married. You could get married in 6 months, a year from now. If you want to know what you can do to get married within a year from now, let me see a yes in the chat.
Yes.
Anybody else?
Yes. I do not have to say yes.
Yes.
Okay. Oh, guys, I'm being serious, you know. I'm really serious. I want to tell you, I want to give you a story, right? And we are going to use this story. I'm going to share something with you that would blow your cotton socks off. I don't know if you wear cotton socks, but. And the story is actually in the Bible. Yeah? Are we ready? Is there somebody talking to me, or somebody has their mic on still?
The mic on.
Oh, okay. So tell me when you're ready. So if you're ready, just say yes, and I'll go.
Yes, go ahead.
Okay, let's go.
Yes.
I hope to get this finished in the next 10 minutes or so. So in the First Samuel, there was a story of a man who had 2 wives. And one of the wives was barren. Many of you, if you talk to a person like Ike and maybe even Dan and maybe even Jay, these guys would tell you back in the day, when you're barren, it was an embarrassment, because one of the functions of being a woman is to be able to to have a family and bear children. You were looked upon as if you were cursed by God. By the way, modern society seemed to have changed this concept, although we don't really subscribe to the fact that God cursed anybody with barrenness. Modern society has now fooled young people, and probably this is something that I should have shared earlier that I didn't share. And I heard this thought first from a guy called Jordan Peterson, this Canadian YouTuber. Well,
no, psychologist.
Psychologist, yes. So he said this, and I totally agree with him. He said, look, modern society lies to young women. Modern society tells young women that the most important thing they could do is to get a career. And the most important thing that matters is a career. And many people have bought into the hype. So most young women spend their life pursuing education, career, wealth, and all that kind of thing. And then when they get all that, then they look to settle down. Now, while nothing is wrong with that, my particular position on that is that you shouldn't do one to the exclusion of the other. You should do both. I tell you why. Well, I don't have to tell you why. You already know. You already know that there is a certain window in nature that you're most fertile. And if that window passes, it becomes a little bit more challenging. So I think that we should talk to young women or younger women and let them know. I once saw a video, a TED Talk, and I thought that was so powerful. It was a lady who actually gave it. And she was either psychiatrist or psychologist or one of those professionals. And she was saying, her talk is, your 30s is not your new 20s. there are things that you should achieve in your 20s that is going to be difficult to achieve in your 30s. But enough said on that. Let me now continue with sharing with you a powerful, both men and women can use powerful, it's all in the scripture here, shift in your mind that would help you to quantum leap your journey from singlehood to couplehood. So this man had this wife. His name was it was Elkanah, right? Elkanah, and he had two wives. One was Penina, and the other one was Hannah. You remember? If you're not familiar, if you're not Christian, but those of you who have been Christians, you would know about this story. So this Hannah found herself barren. So she got married and she couldn't bear children. And that was a big issue, really big issue, because the other wife was able to have children. And the other wife used to rub it in her face. And could you imagine the agony, the silent torture of having to see this lady birthing not one, but 2 and 3 children. And you see these children running up and down the place. And no matter how you try or what you do, you are left in the cold. I don't think that they had fertility treatment back then. And so she got so distraught, really, really distraught. But the man loved her. But having a child is different from a man's love. The man said, am I not to you like 10 children? Please, you don't understand. Don't talk to me like that. Anyway, she went up to the temple. Usually every year they would go up to the temple in Jerusalem, a yearly pilgrimage. And when she was at the temple, she really came to a point that she couldn't hold it anymore. She couldn't hold it anymore. She even stopped eating. She was in the temple and she bore her soul. You know, I don't know what pains you go through when you want something, you desire something, and you can't get it, or it doesn't seem to be forthcoming. You have prayed for years, you have tried, you've gone to many weddings, and you want to be a bride too. Your friends have gotten married. One young lady said to me in private, you know, he said, Hilton, I don't know, but sometimes I feel covetous. She said she feels covetous. Well, the Bible does say that you shouldn't covet. But she really, you know, in the real moments of honesty, another woman said to me that she cries sometimes. Literally, she cries. Nobody would know this. So I don't know what you go through. Maybe you show a tough exterior, your career is going swell, you have everything locked down, but we don't know what goes on in the calmness of your sober mind, 2 o'clock in the morning. But Hannah, she had hit rock bottom. And she cried out to God. Funnily enough, the priest was looking at this woman and observing that she was acting very strange. In fact, the Bible says that she was talking, but no words were coming out. And he came to the conclusion, this woman must be drunk, and had a conversation with her and said, you know, don't come here when you're drunk. You know, he had a go at her. She said, no. I'm not drunk. And she related her situation. And he said something interesting. I'm going to read it for you. In 1 Samuel 1:17, Eli then answered, "Go in peace, and the God of Israel grant your petition that you have made to him." Look at how that is phrased. The God of Israel grant your petition. All right, IK, the theologian is in the house. Covet the best gift. The God of is go in peace, and the God of Israel grant your petition that you have made with him. And she said, verse 18, "Let your servant find favor in your eyes." Then the woman went her way and ate, and her face was no longer sad. Now I'm going to break this down for you to understand. Bear with me, I have a little bit of sniffle with this head fever. Couple of things. So the woman went her way and ate. She wasn't eating because she was so stressed out by the situation, she lost her appetite. But now she ate. And her face was no longer sad. That implies that she was happy. But there is something here that if you don't think about it carefully, you could actually miss. So she went away. And when she went away from there, did anything outwardly change? When she went back home, did anything change? Guess what, guys? She went back to the same home, the same environment, the same place where her competitor was, who was probably giving her grief still. The same children from her competitor was running about in the compound of the house. But she was totally oblivious to all of that. Whereas before, it affected her. The external circumstances, her barrenness, these children, the insults, the put down, the belittling of her competitor, all of that affected her. But now, she's come back. Those things were the same, but guess what? Her mind has changed. She got a word from God. And that word shifted her entire paradigm. And you know what she did? It's not written in the Bible, but further on, when she did get a child, she did get the child, she said that every year she would make things for him. I could very well imagine that she went home and started to prepare. She went home and started to make sure that when this child comes, the child has what is necessary for children and babies to have. But all the time, there was a phase between there that there was no external evidence that she was going to get the child. In fact, to the contrary, there were still situations in her environment and people in her life that were still giving her grief, but didn't bother her anymore. Why? Because she believed the word of God. And when she believed the word of God, everything shifted. And so I'm going to give you that famous Hebrews 11:1 quote. Now faith, easy to read version, is the assurance of things hoped for, the conviction of things not seen. You perhaps like the King James Version. Now faith is the substance of things hoped for, the evidence of things not seen. So, People may tell you that there are shortages of men. There are no good men left. There are no men in the church. You may think that your age may be a factor. You may think your size may be a factor. Maybe you are divorced. Maybe you're a single parent. Maybe you're bereaved. Maybe any of these things. I want to say to you, if you want to, you could. There are people who have similar situations to you who have actually gotten married. So here is your homework. Every excuse that you have in your mind or your mind is telling you, write down the excuse. So let's say when you think about getting married, you say to yourself, hold on, I can't see any men. Okay, you write that down. No men. No men. You may say to yourself, oh my days, I am overweight. Who's going to look at me? So write down overweight. Yeah, got it? You may think, man, I'm a single parent. People don't like single parent, right? Single parent. Now here's your homework. Your homework is to find evidence to the contrary. So if there are no men, do you know of anybody who have gotten married in the last year or so? If you don't know off the top of your head, you begin to research and ask your friends, family to find evidence. Okay, even though there are no men, there are people like Ike who got married. There are people like Dan who's on this. I don't know who else is on there. I can't really. So you might be conscious of your weight or your shape. Maybe you're short. You're a short guy, have short guy syndrome. Have there been short men who have gotten married? Well, if that could happen to them, it could happen to you. Maybe you're a single parent. Are there single parents who have gotten married? Whoa. If God could do that for them, he could do that for you too. Have you spoken to God about this thing? Is there a desire in your heart? God will give you the desires of your heart. And then your second homework is to start preparing. And this is what I'm going to end on. Start preparing. You don't see the evidence yet. You don't have any evidence. But by faith, it is done. The minute Eli spoke to her, she knew that it was going to happen. She went home. I suspect that over the years, she's been trying in the bedroom. But now, with renewed hope, renewed assurance, and conviction, what didn't happen in 20, 30 years happened in one night. Oh, hallelujah. Are you hearing me?
When people are come with them.
Somebody has their mic open. And so that's it, ladies and gentlemen. Start to prepare. What time is it? Okay, so that's it from me. Start to prepare. Get your house in order. It is your mind. Be it unto you according to your faith. Be it unto you according to your faith. No, I could give you strategies, I could give you tips, I could give you support. I help people with this thing. But your faith, there are two types of people I recognize. It's all in the mind. It's all in the mind. And what you allow your mind to rule. Did I tell you about the 61-year-old lady who spoke to me? You know, funnily enough, I taught these things, but when this lady came to me, that was a challenge. Well, I'm happy to let you know that she's married now. She's actually married. I'm happy to even tell you that the guy who got married to her is younger than her, or 5 years younger or so. Why not you? Why not you? Okay, that's it for me. Are there any questions, comments, confusion? If so, speak now or forever hold your peace.
Yeah, I had a question, Brother Hill.